Hello everyone, welcome to the 2018 Homeless Count Volunteer Training. My name is Lester Collins Jr. with MDHA, Metro Dallas Homeless Alliance, and just want to welcome and thank you for those who have volunteered to help with the count in Dallas and in Collin counties. After the presentation, you will see my contact information and you're welcome to contact me with any questions you may have after the presentation. So a little bit about what we want to cover in the presentation. I want to go over why we do the count, how the count is conducted, where the data goes, what we do with the information that is gathered, the expectations of volunteers, what it is that you've signed up for, how to conduct surveys, some engagement tips and interview tips, and tips that make safety first. We also want to cover other helpful information to enhance your experience. A little bit about one aspect of the count is how we determine the unmet need. We take the number of homeless that we count in the community, unsheltered and sheltered, and then we take a look at the number of beds that we have in our system of care and determine the difference, which gives us the unmet need of those experiencing homelessness. The big date is January 25th. Thursday, January 25th is the night of the count. It is the date that the PIT and the HIC will take place. I'll say a little bit about those acronyms. PIT is point in time count, which is determining the number of individuals experiencing unsheltered homelessness on a given night in January. This effort is taking place across the nation in the last 10 days of January, but our date is January 25th. We will go forward, rain or shine. Weather cannot stop us. The count must go on. And as far as the HIC, that stands for Housing Inventory Count. And I alluded to that earlier with the equation that it looks at the unmet need in our community of shelters and other places where our homeless are housed. You might wonder, why are we going out at night? It has everything to do with HUD's definition of homelessness, which is persons who are spending the night in a place not meant for human habitation. So the HUD definition doesn't include people who might be doubled up in homes or in hotels and motels, since those places are meant for human habitation. People in those situations are not considered homeless. It also helps to stick to the same methodology nationwide across communities to make our data more reliable and more easily comparable. We are making use of technology for the second year now in the Dallas and Collin County areas. We are using the mobile application called Counting Us, developed by Simtech Solutions. The unsheltered count will not be using a paper survey this year. Teams must use the app, so each team will need an appropriate device to conduct the count, which is basically a smart device such as a cell phone or tablet that has web-enabled services and is able to connect to 3G or 4G. Everyone has a cell phone nowadays. Even the Jitterbug comes as a smartphone now. There are just a number of benefits to using the app over paper. It's easier to see in the dark because the screen will be lit. There's no interpretation of handwriting. We're able to get real-time data and automatic uploads to databases for both local and federal data analysis and reporting. It also allows our volunteers to travel lighter. There's no need for pens or pencils and stacks of paper or paper clips or clipboards. Each team is consisting of 3 to 5 volunteers. There should be at least 2 team members that download the app to their device for backup purposes, but typically only one team member actually uses their device to do the counts, while the others do things like hold flashlights or hold maps or be responsible for the driving or even looking out just for safety. The app does work with both Apple and Android-based mobile devices, such as smartphones and tablets, as I mentioned earlier, and it can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. Again, all the devices will need to have 4G wireless data services through a cell phone provider. A little bit more about the app. Again, it's called Counting Us. It just allows for all the data from the PIT to be aggregated, and it also allows such that GPS coordinates are gathered each time a survey is submitted. This helps with avoiding duplication of counts and to know if a person has been counted more than once. The survey questions on the app are actually a bit shorter than some of the previous paper versions we've used. We've asked upwards of 45 questions in the past. The app has just 18 questions that really just get at the heart of the information that is needed for federal requirements. Some communities who want extra information are going ahead and asking those questions and capturing it perhaps on paper. But for the purposes of the app, again, there are about 18 questions. It only takes about maybe less than 10 minutes to conduct a survey, and even shorter if it's an observation. The app provides ease of preparation for any reporting that we have to do locally as well as for federal purposes. And not just better data analysis, but more immediate data analysis following cleanup of the data. And also, human error is reduced and we're able to avoid duplication of counting individuals by use of the app. I do want to stress that we want to encourage our volunteers to do as many actual surveys as possible as opposed to observations. Limit the observations to situations in which none of your team members feel safe conducting a brief interview or you deem it inappropriate to wake individuals from sleep. Reasonable knocking on a car window is acceptable to get someone's attention as opposed to loud banging. Also, calling out when it appears that people are present is acceptable as opposed to yelling at the top of your voice. Do strive to find a balance between respectfulness, safety, and being reasonably persistent to get actual interviews as opposed to observations. Ask for as much identification as possible to document unsheltered homelessness. A little bit more about the app and how to obtain it. You'll want to go to the sources I mentioned earlier, the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, and look for the app called Counting Us and download it. Or if your phone is equipped with a QR code reader, you can go ahead and scan it right now, and from the upper right hand corner of this slide that you're looking at. After you install the app, you'll want to go ahead and register by clicking the register button and entering your preferred email address and choosing a convenient password. The inclusion of your email and cell phone number allows me to contact you during the count in the event that I notice some overlapping counting going on, or if another team needs help completing their routes. This information also allows me to contact you later about a survey should I need further clarification on what it is you exactly saw when you were out there. After installation and registration, it will be helpful for you to quote unquote play with the app and do practice interviews. This is the best way to become familiar with the app. Just enter fake data, experiment with both individual and household surveys, and get familiar with the screens, and go ahead and submit those practice surveys. Don't worry, you can't quote unquote break anything. The necessary information for the practice test will be given in the next slide. So the practice information is, the name of the app is Dallas Practice, and the practice setup key is Dallas PX. It is not case sensitive, but this is the information you should use prior to January 25th to become familiar with the app. On the night of the count, we'll actually share the actual live count's name and its setup key. That'll be provided just before deployment. Doing it this way allows us to have practice data entered and keep it separate from the actual live data that will be gathered on the night of the count. So a little bit more about getting into actual surveys and using the app. These are a couple of screenshots of how the app looks on your phone or mobile device. When you're ready to start a survey, you want to log into the App Center or to the app and enter your email address and password. You'll want to join account. Again, the practice count is Dallas Practice. You'll enter the setup key, which again is Dallas PX for the practice count. And on the screen with the three options here in the middle, you'll want to choose the second or third option. That is, the vast majority of volunteers will need to choose HUD PIT interview or HUD PIT observation, because you are conducting unsheltered surveys, not sheltered surveys. Only those who have had discussions with me will be concerned with the unsheltered surveys. The difference between an interview and an observation is that in an interview, you actually talk with and receive information directly from the person being counted, while observation surveys are reserved for situations in which a person refuses to participate in an interview, or they're fast asleep, or there are conditions in which you as a counter feel uncomfortable seeking an interview. Observations are basically limited to survey information that is gained visually and don't include interaction or much interaction. Make no mistake, we still need as much information as possible, even for observations. So try to be thorough in your description and feel free to use the notes section of the app to record any distinguishing, descriptive information or anything unusual that you think might be helpful to note. And then go ahead and submit the survey. As I mentioned earlier, I want to emphasize that we should make our best efforts to conduct actual interviews more so than observations. That is, try to keep observations to a minimum. Do always get the information, but it's preferable for it to come from an interview rather than an observation. Observations just aren't as helpful as interviews, because observations tend to involve some level of estimating age and guessing at race and ethnicity and gender. So with safety and comfort in mind, do try to do interviews as opposed to observations. That would improve the quality of the data that we collect. Here's a shot of the regional command center that works in conjunction with the app. You won't actually see this screen, but it is a view of what the benefits that are offered with using the app. This is the regional command center, and it just tallies up information that is gathered, surveys as they are collected, and allows for almost immediate data analysis following some data cleaning that needs to take place. It also allows us to track where surveys are conducted, and again, to avoid duplication and see where, densities are and where homelessness is spread throughout our community. A little bit about what it is you are signed up for, or considering signing up for. So volunteer tasks. You'll need to download the Counting Us app on your smart device, as was described earlier. At least 2 members of each team should go ahead and download the app just for backup purposes, so someone's always ready to go. Only 1 team member will actually need to use their device to do a survey at a time. Your team will need to arrive at your deployment site by 7 p.m. on January 25th. You will check in and locate the rest of your team. I do want to emphasize that you should have your signed consent form ready to hand over. Those can be downloaded from our website. So please go ahead and print those out, sign them, and have them ready to hand over. If not, we will have some backup forms ready at the deployment sites. Your team will be assigned a route and given a count kit. I'll say more about the count kits later. You will receive final instructions from the deployment site manager. You will be given the live count setup key and the name of the actual live count at the deployment center and just prior to deployment for the count around 8 p.m. Your team will drive in 1 car to the assigned route area. You will drive and then get out and walk and canvass the entire area of the maps that you'll be given. You will interview or observe persons experiencing homelessness and record information in the Counting Us app. When you are finished with your route, you will text or call the account manager to report your route number as complete. This is very important and helpful that you do go ahead and use the contact information on the outside of your envelope to let the account manager know that your route has been completed. This way, it helps us to stay organized and also to know that you have safely completed your route for the evening. Team leaders will receive information on where to meet and start times for areas that are outside of the city of Dallas, such as DeSoto and Irving and Grand Prairie and other parts of Collin County locations. But for the Dallas deployment time, it will be 8 p.m., but show up at 7, but be ready to head out by 8. This time of day helps us to avoid overlapping with shelters and their admission times. This avoids counting an individual as both sheltered and unsheltered on a given night. Also, there will be no need to return to the deployment site once you go out and complete your route, except perhaps to retrieve vehicles because you've carpooled. But you won't have any materials to return as in years past, such as paper surveys. If there are any leftover materials, just divvy those up amongst your team members and feel free to distribute those individually as you go about the community and see needs. The contents of the count kits will include some more instructions for the Counting Us app 2 very large maps of your team's routes, probably 11 by 17 size, our calling resource guides to share with helpful information, a homeless count car sign for your dashboard and your rear windows. These signs are helpful with letting law enforcement know that you're going about official business, or also letting neighborhood watches know that you are a part of the count. Your team will want to be equipped with flashlights, and you'll be driving slowly and having blinkers on, and so all this signage helps to make things legitimate. We definitely want to emphasize safety, so this is gained by being in numbers. Teams should be at least 3 members. 4 to 5 is even better. Teams should go out in one car. This keeps you all together and cuts down on the traffic as you go into areas where you might find individuals. Teams are encouraged to have several flashlights with new batteries. When you pull off the road, go ahead and pull all the way off the road and put your hazard flashers on. If you don't feel safe, then don't do a survey. Your safety is definitely important, and we don't want to put you in overly uncomfortable situations. Wear warm and bright clothing. We will be out at night, and it's likely to be cold, so you want to be warm and you want to be visible for safety purposes. Please go ahead and charge up all the phones and tablets that are going to be used, and go ahead and even have car chargers available to keep the power going to those devices. We also encourage that you know where you are at all times. Know an address, know an intersection, or some sort of landmark. This will be important in case you encounter an emergency and need to call 911, and you'll be able to let them know where you are. I'd like to emphasize that regarding safety, ultimately, the individuals experiencing homelessness and sleeping outside are really in the greatest danger due to the conditions that they're subject to, and this being more so than any danger that count volunteers who are traveling in numbers might experience. A little bit more about safety. The only incidents we've really had in the past are just people going down steep embankments and stumbling. So if the physical terrain is precarious, then don't go there. Just do an observation survey or skip it altogether. We know we won't find all of the homeless, so safety again is a top priority. We don't want any trekking into the woods or exploring abandoned buildings. Do avoid those situations. The maps that you'll be receiving in your count kits will include route numbers, and these numbers are important for communicating with the site managers or count managers, and also just keeping things organized. On the maps, the locations that are known to have been occupied by individuals experiencing homelessness will be marked with a star, and there will also be gray areas on your map, and we want you to canvass the entire area. So you want to drive there, go ahead and park, and then walk and cover the entire gray area. Only count those in your assigned gray area. And here's a look at those maps. So here it is. You'll notice that the map has areas on it that are not grayed. Do not go into those areas and count. There are also areas that have stars, but again, are not in the gray area. Avoid going to the stars that are not in your gray area. This will avoid duplication. So stay in the gray. When you are done, you can text or call stating for instance that route 4B has been completed. That'll be very helpful for us to hear from you. So where do you want to look when you're out counting? You want to look for individuals who are spending the night outdoors. They can be found in a car, in building entryways, in alleyways, in tents or other makeshift structures or shelters. You'll see individuals with all of their possessions with them. They'll probably be in carts or strollers. You may also find them in 24-hour restaurants, trying to be warm or stay dry. So you might want to pop into such restaurants and order yourself a cup of coffee and look around, and if you see of anyone who you might want to conduct a survey with or an observation. Individuals can also be found at package stores and behind restaurants or certainly near dumpsters. They can be found at DART stations and Greyhound stations and surrounding emergency shelters and their entryways and yards. Individuals will be found in overpasses and underpasses and also in emergency room waiting areas, again, trying to escape the elements and just be extra safe. So you want to go to these areas. You'll also find them in Walmart parking lots because they're well lit, or motel parking lots. These are some of the areas that you'll want to check. You'll also notice individuals or need to look for individuals who might have several layers of clothing on or are wearing full backpacks or large backpacks, looking like, again, they are walking around with all of their possessions. So how do you start the conversation? Just go ahead and be explicit about why you are out there at night. Perhaps something like, hello, my name is Lester and I'm a volunteer for the Metro Dallas Homeless Alliance. We are interviewing persons experiencing homelessness. You will want to ask, is it okay if we approach your camp? This is important to note that even though you're outside, the spaces that you'll be entering will largely be considered an individual's home. And you want to be respectful and ask for permission to approach and enter their home, as it were. You want to let them know that we are taking account and asking a few questions, and it will take just a few minutes. Let them know that it'll be helpful to improving the services rendered in our community, as well as a national snapshot and improving services to those experiencing homelessness. You can let them know that they're certainly free to refuse to do the survey, but ask if it's okay to approach and come a little closer and ask some questions. You want to keep your distance, a distance that's comfortable to you and to the individual or group experiencing homelessness. Please avoid flashing the flashlight into their eyes, and you can also let them know that it's perfectly okay to refuse a survey. In those cases, you'll want to go ahead and do an observation. If it's a tent that doesn't get opened, you might ask, how many of you are in there? And that'll still be an observation. If your team has items such as socks or non-perishable food items, granola bars, or hygiene kits, go ahead and offer those as a thank you for their time, or even if they don't do an interview and you see a need that you can meet, go ahead and share some of those items. Also resource guides from our calling. One of the main questions that you are seeking to ask is, where do you plan to spend the night here? In the event that they're walking somewhere and deny being homeless, but very much appear to be homeless, and you believe that they are, you may just want to do an observation They may deny being homeless out of concern for their safety. And in these cases, again, for the observations, you want to use the notes section of the app to record any of this information. A little bit more about going into the interview. Again, you want to emphasize that it's completely voluntary. Some people may not want to answer all of the questions, but just some of the questions, and that's perfectly fine as well. We encourage persons to give us their names, as this is an opportunity to document homelessness for future shelter entry or housing readiness. It's helpful to document the instances of their homelessness, and these surveys can contribute to doing that. If they don't want to give a name, then try asking for initials. If someone's asleep, conduct an observation survey, just getting as much information as possible from what you're able to see, and again, use the notes section of the app. When you are able to complete interviews, thank them for their participation and share some of those items that you may have as a thank you with them. When you are done with your route, again, we want you to go ahead and text or call the deployment site manager and let us know that you are done with your route and that everyone was safe and successful. The information for the site managers, again, will be on the outside of your envelopes. And again, we just want to know that you're finished, to keep things organized, and that you have safely been able to complete the route. So here I want to provide my contact information. Do call me if you have any remaining questions, or email me, or even text, and that'll be just fine. I'll be glad to help out. If you have not registered already, you may do so at our website. It is mdhadallas.org, and then you'll want to go over to the homeless count right here. And once you click here, you'll see this screen, and you want to click on register. And from there, you can register yourself as an individual or yourself and your team if you have one and haven't registered already. Again, there's my information, and I just want to say thank you for volunteering or considering volunteering. This certainly would not be possible without your help. And again, just contact me with any questions you might have. This effort is very important to our community and to our neighbors experiencing homelessness. Just helps out with our local community and the nation. I want to encourage you to stay tuned for the results of the count to be shared in an upcoming annual State of the Homeless address, which will be given by the MDHA CEO and President Cindy Crane. Stay tuned for the date and location of that. The presentation will include comparisons of this year's and previous year's counts and any information we've learned about homelessness in our community and how to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-reoccurring in our community. Again, thanks again, and we'll see you on the night of the count.